First one is nutrition, and basically it's my perspective on what I was doing. So, nutrition can be a fairly political thing, I think, for some people. They can put a certain spin on it, and they can turn into not just a talking point, but people start to get really antsy about other people's diets, or I'm not pushing anything on anyone. For me, my life when I was drinking alcohol, my diet was complete crap. I tried to eat well when I wasn't drinking, but as soon as I had a few pints in me, all of that kind of stuff went down the Swanee, and I was more of a junky food person. Eating the crappiest food. Salt, fat, and sugar were my staples. And I'm not sure if that's something to do with your taste buds, or just your inhibitions are lowered to a certain degree, and you just get to a point where you don't give a shit anymore. Inhibitions are there for a reason. That reasonable, rational thinking, where you're thinking about your future as well as what you're doing in the moment. It's important, and I think when you're drinking, that sort of drops along with everything else. So that was where I was. I stopped drinking alcohol, and I tried to change a bit of what I was doing in the early days. First couple of months, I tried to change to more veggies and eat more fruits and stuff like that, because that's what we were taught with the food pyramid. But I didn't have much knowledge about nutrition in general. June of that year, so 6 months after I stopped, my dad went into hospital, and they basically said that his whole body was shutting down and his organs were shutting down, and it was because of his diet and his lifestyle. He'd been a smoker for a long time. He drank, not loads, but he was still a drinker, and he just ate a very an Irish diet, as you could say. A lot of fats, a lot of meat, a lot of carbohydrates, not too much junk food, but it was just a lot of food that he ate. So he came out of hospital, and he was fine, not fine, but he lasted. He died about 3 or 4 years after that, but they said he wasn't coming out of the hospital, and he's a fighter, so he lasted a few more years. He changed the way he was thinking. He changed the way that he ate, and that sort of gave him a bit more of an outlook on life, a better outlook on life, a better view on what he was putting into his own body, and he wanted to live, So, but when he was doing that, when he was in the hospital, I started reading up then on nutrition, just for myself, and to try and help him when he came back out. And I was reading a couple of books. One was the China Study, and the other one was Whole, W-H-O-L-E, Whole, Rethinking the Science of Nutrition. Both of these books are by a guy called Colin Campbell. I think it's M. Colin Campbell. Not sure anyway, but Colin Campbell is the guy's name. And he basically talks about the whole foods, plant-based diet. And it's not a vegan diet. It sounds vegan. I suppose a lot of the stuff that they're talking about is vegan. But vegan can be junk food as well as anything else. So veganism is not based around health. I mean, you can eat potato chips and drink Coca-Cola and you're a vegan, right? So it's not based around health. I mean, the only time that I used to say that I was a vegan was when I went into restaurants and they didn't understand what whole foods plant-based diet was, and especially if I was going into a Spanish restaurant here in Spain, and just trying to explain that to people was a nightmare. So that's what I said: vegan. Veganism is often derided, and it's something that I never sort of attach my own principles to, because there's such a huge lunatic fringe On the outskirts of it, I mean, there's a lot of people that I know who are vegans who are very conscientious people and they're very level-headed in themselves and what they do and in how they talk about or don't talk about their own diets. So I think a lot of vegans can be preachy and they tend to box you up and label you, and once you're under that label, you just get a lot of nutters in that group. I remember saying something earlier on when I was on a forum about what would they do with all the cows. It's an innocent question, and the amount of abuse I got was unreal. So they're just prone to a lot of dogma, and they're resistant to any form of criticism about what they're doing. So I mean, a much better approach, and I think a lot of vegans are coming around to this, is, if you want to change society and you want more people to eat less animals, then you do it slowly, and you do it by educating people. You do it by being kind to people and saying, well, try it for a day, go vegan for a day, don't eat animal flesh for a day, don't eat, that kind of thing. So anyway, mine was a plant-based whole foods diet, plant-based being the operative word. So I would always, every so often, eat some eggs or something like that. So it wasn't wholly plant-based. It wasn't wholly vegan. And I've since introduced some fish and some chicken into my diet, small amounts of that, because it's just life is short for me, and I tend to use food as a tool more than anything else. And like I said, I'm sticking to whole food, plant-based, that basis of eating as many whole foods as I possibly can. So, I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about my food and what I was eating, my relationship with food. So it taught me a lot. And I was a vegan, or as close as I could be to a vegan, for about 8 years. And it's only in the last year that I've started to reincorporate some fish into my life, and like I said, chicken. I had chicken for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and I'd forgotten how to cook it, and it was the toughest bit of bird I've ever had in my life, So yeah, I have to do something different with that. Anyway, that's my nutrition. That's what I eat. I mean, I love fruits and vegetables now, and I didn't so much before, and I try not to eat as much junk food. I don't hardly eat junk food. I suppose in percentage wise, maybe 5-10% of my food could be classed as junk food, and I avoid the high end of that junk food, the really crappy stuff, if I can. There's no situation where I can go into now where I can't find decent food, good food, and the money that I always saved on alcohol can easily be put over to that. So I think what you put into your body is important. That's one of the things that I've learned is you are what you eat. I mean, your body, what you put inside your body has to use that as the building blocks for any repair work that it's doing. Your brain has to operate on that, so if you're not putting the right stuff in, if you're not putting good quantities of the right stuff in, then you're going to suffer in the long run. So anyway, that's my diet. I'm Kevin O'Hara for habitsv2.com. We help people to stop drinking alcohol and to get to that best possible version of themselves. Take care of yourself, and I'll speak to you again soon. Onwards and upwards.